A boy appears in the virtual reality game Fantasy Defense. He is the youngest son of a prestigious swordsman family, and his name is Celterion Marquis. Celterion is one of the characters from his family involved in major early game events. However, during an event involving the main protagonist, he is badly beaten and dies pitifully after being struck down by a minion summoned by a villain, killed in a single blow, and everyone assumes he was just an insignificant extra. And that character, whose story is told above, is our boy. Our boy looks into the mirror, smiles awkwardly, and pinches his cheeks, wincing in pain. He's testing to see if he's dreaming, but since it hurts, he realizes this is all too real. He places his hands on the mirror, struggling to understand how he ended up inside a virtual reality game. Our boy, Lee Hyun-woo, cries in disbelief. He can't accept that he, who once ranked first in the world for fantasy defense, has now become this worthless character. Fantasy Defense, the virtual reality game that will take the world by storm in 2030, has completely turned his life upside down. The game had such a devilish level of difficulty that no one had cleared it, even after 10 years. However, this very challenge and the game's addictive nature kept it popular. Players earn points in the global rankings based on how they play and complete quests, with rare quests and items significantly boosting their scores. Our boy says that's why, for 10 years in real life, he had been completely immersed in fantasy defense. After mastering everything, from rare magic circles to legendary crafting combinations, he achieved an overwhelming score. He was truly a living legend of the game, the top-ranked global player, Lee Hyun-woo. Our boy sighs as he reflects on his current situation, realizing that he's now inhabiting the body of an ordinary character. He wonders how he will survive in this world, especially since even the main protagonist, with the best talents, couldn't clear the game. As he sits idly on his bed, he recalls Celterion's fate, a character whose story he knows all too well from playing the game countless times. Our boy then explains that the ultimate goal in fantasy defense is to stop the forces of darkness. The one who summoned these dark forces was the second son of the Celterion family, Adol. In an attempt to usurp the head of the family, Adol sought the power of darkness to incite a rebellion. As a result, the Celterion territory became a base for the dark forces who had long coveted human lands. In the ensuing chaos, the incompetent and powerless Celterion, our boy, ran into the territory and was killed by a villain. Now, in the present, our boy sighs with regret, realizing that he could have simply left the territory before the rebellion began. However, he recognizes a bigger issue. This character has a disease called Hermumu. Our boy grows sad as he looks at his hand, and we learn that Hermumu is a condition in which the mana channels within the body are blocked. In this game world, mana is the source of both aura and magic, as well as the essential energy needed for survival. Those with blocked mana channels, known as Hermumu patients, cannot absorb the nutrients required for life and growth, and most die before reaching the age of 20. Our boy looks at his hands, reflecting on the fact that the only cure for Hermumu is to absorb mana from nature into the body. However, since the mana channels are blocked, absorbing mana is impossible. In other words, being diagnosed with Hermumu is essentially a death sentence. Celterion, diagnosed at a young age, fell into deep despair. After his diagnosis, Cal was consumed by fear of death, anxiety over his remaining time, and frustration at being unable to fight back. As these thoughts overwhelm him, sweat streams down his face. Eventually, Cal became twisted, and before long, he was regarded as a disgrace to the family. His father instructed him to stay in his room and reflect on his actions. Isolated and gloomy, Cal was ultimately confined to an annex by his father, the head of the Celterion family. Sitting in his room, Cal cries in anger, questioning whether his family sees him as a joke. He feels deeply humiliated, believing they all look down on him. Enraged, Cal throws a chair at the door and screams, wishing they would all just die. His eyes burn with terror, making him appear fierce and desperate. Our boy remains silent, reflecting on all these scenes, thinking that Kyle is beyond hope. He admits that even in the game, he felt Kyle was a lost cause, so rotten that even his terminal illness doesn't evoke any sympathy. Our boy tells us to reassess the situation. The character he's possessed, Kyle Celterion, is the youngest son of a Marquis, but the family is doomed. Kyle has no talent in swordsmanship or magic, and his life expectancy is severely limited due to his illness. He has a terrible personality, a ruined reputation, and has been confined by the family head. Our boy feels hopeless, realizing that he's trapped in a no-win situation. Whether he stays or runs, death seems inevitable. Desperate, he screams in frustration, unable to fathom how he can survive in this world with such terrible stats. He thinks to himself that it's normal for someone to get some sort of cheat ability when they're reincarnated, and he desperately wishes for a status window or something similar as he cries. Suddenly, our boy is shocked to see blue-colored bubbles appearing in his room. Curious, he looks at them, wondering what they are, and reaches out to touch one of the bubbles. Our boy thinks to himself that he has never encountered anything like this before. As he touches the bubble, lightning begins to spark from his hand. Confused, he can't grasp what is happening until a status window suddenly appears in front of him, informing him that he has awakened and has been granted 2 new talents. The status window has now been unlocked, and it also informs him that he can use Insight, which will activate automatically. Shocked and surprised by the appearance of the status window, our boy decides to take a closer look. As he reviews the talents given to him, he notices something called Mana Pathway, but he has no idea what it means. He continues to examine the window and discovers another talent called Mind's Eye, which allows him to see detailed specifications. However, our boy is puzzled by the talent related to mana pathways, as he has never seen anything like it before. He deduces from the name that it seems to be connected to magic, but he is unsure. Confused, he recalls that the best magic talent is supposed to be Mana Companion. Yet, as he examines the status window further, he begins to trust his intuition, sensing that this new talent might be even more extraordinary than Mana Companion. Our boy thinks that Mana Pathways must be a top-tier talent, and a wave of happiness washes over him as he realizes that now, nothing will stop him. He glances at the blue bubbles again, recalling that the best magic talent was always supposed to be Mana Companion, but something deep inside tells him that this talent will be even better. As he touches one of the blue bubbles, a radiant blue light emerges from his hand. He feels a surge of power coursing through him and begins to believe that this must indeed be a top-tier ability. Clenching his fist, our boy becomes more certain. Back when he had the Mana Companion ability, he could never experience anything like this. While watching his hand transform before his eyes, he realizes that this is pure mana energy itself. If he can absorb it properly, mana will flow freely through his body, and according to his will, it will break through his limits. Our boy can feel the blue lightning coursing through his veins. He commands it to move according to his will, discovering that he can control it. Determined to break through the blockage in his mana channels, he shapes the mana into a drill, and it instantly transforms as he wishes. When he commands it to move, it obeys perfectly, flowing exactly as he directs. Overjoyed that it worked as he intended, our boy feels the mana flowing through his veins, though it's only reaching up to his elbow for now. He realizes that if he continues to gather mana and opens the path fully, he might be able to overcome the barrier of Hermimo. Feeling a surge of hope, our boy is elated. He won't die now. Meanwhile, in the territory, a maid finishes preparing lunch and wipes her hands with a towel. She remarks to herself that the meal is ready and decides to take it to Lord Kyle before it gets cold. But before she can leave, 2 other maids approach her, stopping her in her tracks. The maid, whose name is Urgel, looks at them in confusion. The 2 maids, one with green hair and the other with blue, gaze at Urgel with anger. The green-haired maid tells Urgel that they've decided to stop serving Lord Kyle for a while. The green-haired maid explains that they are protesting Kyle's behavior, saying that going hungry for a few days might improve his attitude. She demands that Urgel put the soup down immediately, and the blue-haired maid agrees with her. Urgel looks at them quietly and responds, "You can do whatever you want, but I'll still do my job." Her calm defiance angers both of them. The green-haired maid shouts at Urgel, accusing her of acting self-righteous, asking if she thinks she's the only one trying to be noble. In a fit of rage, she knocks the tray out of Urgel's hands. Urgel is shocked, but before she can react, the green-haired maid sneers, asking if she still thinks she's noble now. The maid continues to berate Urgel, reminding her that after her family's downfall, they sold her as a slave. Despite the insults, Urgel quietly kneels to pick up the fallen dishes, ignoring the green-haired maid's taunts. This silent resistance only fuels her rage. The green-haired maid, now even more furious, seething with anger, she raises her hand to slap Urgel, shouting, "Are you just going to ignore us like this?" Suddenly, someone steps in and asks, "What's going on here?" The green-haired maid turns around to see a young man standing behind her, glaring angrily. Both the green-haired and blue-haired maids are shocked. It's Sir Leonhardt. The green-haired maid is visibly scared, while the blue-haired one nervously asks why Sir Leonhardt is in the kitchen. Sir Leonhardt glances at the meal spilled on the floor and asks, "Is this meal for Lord Kyle?" Internally, he's already pieced together that these maids are giving Urgel trouble. Sternly, he informs them that the meal is already late and orders them to prepare it again, quickly. Urgel, though confused, nods in agreement and begins to collect the meal, while the green and blue-haired maids look annoyed. As Urgel leaves with the food, Sir Leonhardt watches her in silence. Meanwhile, in Kyle's room, our boy is testing his newly discovered talents, insight and mana blockage manipulation. He muses that, with these two abilities, he might actually be able to change the fate of the fallen Marquis family. Our boy reflects that he's been playing fantasy defense for 10 years, giving him knowledge almost like foresight. And now, he's been born into this world with immense power. Our boy contemplates the immense wealth and influence of the Marquis family, realizing that it's not impossible to block the forces of darkness. He looks at the status window and identifies 3 main tasks that require his focus. First, he must clear the mana channels, overcome the barrier of Hermamu, and learn magic. Since mana blockage is closely tied to magic, it makes sense for him to pursue becoming a mage rather than a knight. The second task is to prevent the downfall of the Marquis family. The better the family performs, the better his situation will be. The Celterian Marquis, with its flawed reputation and wealth, can serve as a strong shield for our boy. Additionally, because the territory is located on the outskirts, he won't have to worry about the complexities of capital politics. The final and most crucial task is to gather talented individuals. Our boy acknowledges that to prepare for the major threats posed by the dark forces in the coming years, he will utilize his insight to identify people with potential, bringing them under his influence. These individuals will become reliable allies for him. While contemplating this strategy, our boy states that by building strength, he will undoubtedly survive. Our boy feeling pleased as he reflects that to gather talent, he should start by looking nearby. Considering the Celterian Marquis family, he concludes that Leonhardt would be a good starting point, as he is a valuable tank NPC. While our boy is deep in thought, Urgel enters his room, calling out to him. She informs him that she has brought a meal. As our boy looks at her, memories of their past interactions come to mind. He wonders about her name, but can only recall the first 3 letters. Just then, his insight ability activates, revealing that the target has a low rank. Urgel's essence is probed, and her status window materializes in front of our boy. He is shocked to discover that, with the help of his insight talent, he can access information about others. Urgel's status window reveals that she possesses a talent for eternal friend of spirits in household chores. Our boy is taken aback, struggling to comprehend that the maid has such a remarkable talent, as it is a top-tier spirit summoning ability. Our boy looks at Urgel as she tells him to enjoy his meal before leaving the room. He wonders why a girl with the talent to become a genius spirit summoner is working as a maid in a place like this. The story then flashes back 1 year. At the auction house, the auctioneer gathers the attention of the gentlemen and ladies present, announcing that they have a very special item for sale, something not easily found elsewhere. He explains that they barely managed to bring her to the auction and then reveals the girl. Nervously, she stands before the crowd as the auctioneer introduces her as the 3rd daughter of the fallen Baron Helheim family. She is Urgel. The attendees are taken aback, and the auctioneer continues, stating that despite her noble lineage, she is well-mannered and intelligent. He urges the audience to place their bids. Bidding begins, with offers of 50 gold, 70 gold, and then 90 gold echoing through the hall. Sir Leonhart sits nearby and advises Lord Kyle to leave, remarking that slave auctions are not worth watching. However, Kyle interrupts the conversation by bidding 300 gold for Urgel, leaving Leonhart in shock. Leonhart urges Kyle to reconsider his decision. The auctioneer announces the bid of 300 gold and inquires if anyone is willing to bid higher. Leonhart questions Kyle, asking if he truly wants to buy a slave and wonders what his father would think about it. Angry, Kyle yells at Leonhart to stop nagging him, asserting that he will spend his money as he wishes and that his father doesn't care about his choices. Despite Leonhart's desire to intervene, Kyle begins to walk forward, and the auctioneer declares that the slave is sold for 300 gold. Kyle approaches Urgel, who stands there with her hands cuffed. He looks at her, and with a piercing gaze into her soul, he declares that she is now his. Kyle removes Urgel's cuffs and tells her that she is free now. He explains that she is no longer a slave since he has purchased her, and now she can go wherever she wishes. Urgel looks at him as he turns to leave. She stands there, contemplating her newfound freedom, but then recalls Kyle's words declaring that she belongs to him. As Kyle walks away, he notices Urgel stopping him by holding onto the cuff of his sleeve. She tells him that she will follow him. Confused, Kyle responds that she is free to do whatever she wants and continues on his way. In the present, our boy reflects on these memories while eating his lunch, realizing that they are actually Kyle's memories. He understands that the reason Urgel became a maid for the Marquis family was that Kyle took her in when she was on the verge of being sold as a slave after her family's downfall. Our boy feels a sense of empathy for Urgel, recognizing that she has endured so much at such a young age. He wonders if he has truly merged with Kyle, as he considers the emotions Kyle harbored towards Urgel. The feelings are vivid and profound. Our boy feels a shared sense of abandonment from the world, coupled with a lack of control over his fate. He takes a bite of his lunch, his eyes lighting up as he asks Urgel if she made it herself. Worried, Urgel asks with a trembling voice if something is wrong with the food. Our boy assures her that it is delicious and praises her cooking skills. He smiles and requests that she make this dish for him again next time. Urgel is taken aback, but eventually agrees with him. Our boy notices her affection for him, which shows a score of 35. He reflects on their dramatic encounter, thinking that it isn't a particularly high affection score. Given his delinquent behavior, he considers it a miracle that Urgel still holds any affection at all. Our boy recalls that in Fantasy Defense, there was no spirit mage NPC named Urgel. He suspects she must have been caught in the internal rebellion of the Marquis family and died before her talents as a spirit mage could truly blossom. Determined, our boy resolves that he will not let that happen this time. He refuses to allow such a valuable talent to slip away right before his eyes. Our boy asks Urgel if she has ever considered learning spirit magic. Urgel responds with curiosity, admitting that she knows nothing about spirit magic. Our boy explains that he believes she might have some talent for it. She remains silent, looking at him with confusion, and expresses that she has never imagined having any talent for spirit magic. Our boy realizes that it seems she has never encountered spirit magic even in her family home. He understands that spirit magic is known to be particularly expensive, likely something a lower-ranked noble family could not afford to teach her. Our boy thinks he will need to address this matter later. He encourages her to start considering it, assuring her that she will learn it soon. Urgel hesitates, and our boy insists that there is no option to refuse. He gets off the bed and stands in front of her, stating that she must follow his words. Urgel looks into his eyes, still confused. Our boy reassures her with a smile, telling her that she is his person now. To his satisfaction, he notices that her affection for him has increased to 50. A few days later, our boy, now ready as Kyle, tells Leonhart to move aside because he wants to go outside. Leonhart refuses, stating that he cannot go out. Our boy becomes angry, reminding Leonhart that he has not been outside in days and asking if he must remain locked up there forever. Leonhart insists that he cannot leave until the master grants permission, asking if Kyle has forgotten what the master had said. Our boy tries to remember and recalls that his father, while calling him a delinquent, had confined him to his room due to the trouble he caused for the Marquis of Celterion. He realizes that time is running out. Mana particles swirl in the wind, and our boy states that since discovering he could open his mana channels, he has been absorbing the mana in the room every day. However, the amount of mana available is not sufficient to open the channels all at once. Like experience points in a game, the mana accumulated in his body, gradually improving his physical condition, but it is nowhere near enough to cure Hermimu. That is why he needs to go outside and gather more mana. Our boy decides that he needs to go outside to collect more mana. He smiles and tells Leonhardt that he is not going far, just for a short walk around to get some exercise. Leonhardt is shocked to hear about the exercise. He remarks that it is the first time he has ever heard such a constructive reason from our boy. In response, our boy becomes angry and asks what Leonhardt takes him for. Leonhardt explains that after being Kyle's bodyguard for years, this is the first time he has heard him say something like this. Our boy reflects on his reputation, which has been terrible for so long, and realizes that his trust level with Leonhardt is 0. He feels disheartened, thinking that he never expected Leonhardt to be such an impenetrable wall. Our boy concludes that Leonhardt is impossible to reason with. Currently, Leonhardt serves as Kyle's bodyguard, but he is originally a very famous character from the fantasy defense game, known for his excellent skills in both defense and offense, as well as his high potential. Leonhardt could be developed into a captain-level knight, serving as a tank in parties. He is also highly popular among players due to his loyalty trait, which ensures that he would never betray them. In the original game, after the downfall of the Marquis family, Leonhardt becomes a wandering knight who can be recruited by the player. However, since the Second Son's rebellion has not occurred yet, he is still at the Celterion mansion. Our boy thinks it is a waste for such a talented person to serve as a babysitter for a delinquent like him. He wonders what the Celterion Knight Order is even doing. With a sigh, he expresses aloud his frustration about Leonhardt's presence. Upon realizing that he spoke his thoughts out loud, Leonhardt asks if our boy has a problem with him being Kyle's bodyguard. Our boy checks Leonhardt's affection level, only to find it at -60, which disappoints him. He quickly tries to cover up his thoughts, insisting that it is not what Leonhardt is thinking and that he has no issue with him. Internally, our boy reflects that Leonhardt is simply too talented for this job. Leonhardt responds that he is merely following the master's orders. Our boy understands then that Leonhardt's loyalty lies not with him, but with Master Remtun Celterion. Our boy reflects that he expected this outcome, as who would want to be loyal to a delinquent like him? However, he realizes that he cannot let that situation stand. He tells Leonhardt that he needs to convince his father. Leonhardt becomes confused, sensing that something about Kyle feels different. Our boy smiles, thinking that once he catches Leonhardt's attention, he will be his. With a smile, he asks Leonhardt if he agrees with this plan, internally noting that his second project for recruiting talent is Leonhardt. Our boy smiles and asks Leonhardt if he will help him. Leonhardt looks at him, internally noting that Kyle's attitude seems different somehow, and asks Lord Kyle what he is scheming. Our boy becomes shocked, questioning what Leonhardt means by scheming, and asks if he does not trust him at all. He explains that he has been in his room for so long that his thoughts have changed. Leonhardt is taken aback and asks if his thoughts have truly changed. Our boy smirks, stating that he has decided to live a long life. Leonhardt becomes confused, wondering why someone like Lord Kyle, who had given up on everything due to the incurable Hermimu disease, would want to live longer. Leonhardt starts to reflect on the past when Kyle's father informed him that Kyle would not live past a certain age. Not only did he lack magical talent, but he was also deficient in swordsmanship skills. Additionally, being the youngest meant he had no chance of inheriting the family legacy. Despite all these obstacles, his father wanted to keep Kyle by his side. Remtun Celterion asks Leonhardt if he resents him for making such a decision. Leonhardt remains silent, stating that it is an honor beyond words for someone in the Celterion Knight Order to protect a direct descendant of the Marquis family. He bows and pledges to fulfill his duties faithfully. Remtun Celterion expresses his confidence in Leonhardt, remarking that he is a man of loyalty. He explains that this is why he wants Leonhardt to be at Kyle's side. Rempton further emphasizes that in the vast Marquis household, there is no one else he can truly trust to protect Kyle except Leonhardt. He instructs Leonhardt to take good care of him. Leonhardt looks down, bows in respect, and assures him that he will obey the Marquis. In the present, Leonhardt remains silent while observing Kyle. Kyle tells Leonhardt that if someone wants to live longer, they need to be healthy. Therefore, he intends to exercise outside. He suggests that he can inform his father about this, assuring Leonhardt that his father will understand. Kyle smiles and asks if it is acceptable for him to go outside. As he attempts to leave, Leonhardt blocks his path and reminds him that he can also exercise indoors. Our boy becomes annoyed, thinking that Leonhardt is truly stubborn and difficult to convince. He tells Leonhardt to move aside, insisting that he doesn't want to repeat himself. Frustrated, he internally resolves that he needs to go outside to find more mana cores. They both remain silent, staring at each other, and Leonhardt reflects on the unusual aura surrounding Lord Kyle, sensing something different about him. Nevertheless, Leonhardt asserts that the Marquis' orders are absolute, which applies to him as well. He adds that if Kyle really wants to go outside, he must get past him first. Our boy is shocked, sensing the killing intent emanating from Leonhardt, realizing that the knight is using it against a child over something as simple as stepping outside. He thinks that if he were an ordinary 13-year-old, he might have wet himself in fear and collapsed on the spot. However, he is not an ordinary boy and firmly tells Leonhardt to uphold his word. Leonhardt agrees, and Kyle extends his hand, thinking that if he were just an ordinary 13-year-old, he would punch Leonhardt. A blue light emanates from his fist. Leonhardt gives Kyle a sidelong glance, and Kyle smirks as he passes by him. Kyle asks Leonhardt how it was, bragging that he managed to get past him. Once outside by the lake, he remarks on how refreshing the air feels. He lazily gulps in the fresh air and wonders how long it has been since he was last outside. Leonhardt is with him, observing quietly. Our boy reflects that even though it's just the garden near the annex, he feels a sense of freedom. He marvels at the beauty of the night sky and, more than anything, his eyes shine as he sees particles of mana everywhere. Excitedly, he thinks about devouring them all and starts running into the garden. Leonhardt stands there, confused, not expecting Kyle to be so elated just to be outside, thinking to himself that he's just a little kid. He remains silent but becomes slightly worried as he recalls the moment when Kyle passed him. He wonders how that was possible, considering that Lord Kyle has not trained in mana or aura and should not be able to handle this pressure. Our boy notices Leonhardt's confusion and thinks that it seems the knight is still rattled from what happened earlier, acknowledging that he had every reason to be shocked. Kyle was just a 13-year-old noble boy who had never been in a real fight, but mentally, he was a veteran who had survived countless virtual wars over the past 10 years in the virtual reality game Fantasy Defense. The game was famous for its realistic depictions of battle, and Kyle had become desensitized to life-or-death situations. So, when faced with a minor scare tactic like Leonard's killing intent, it felt almost second nature to him. After gathering enough mana particles, our boy thought he would be able to clear more mana channels soon. As he finished, Leonard approached him, stating that he would be receiving punishment from Rempton for his actions. Confused, our boy asked what he meant. Leonard explained that although he had followed Rempton's orders, it was wrong for him to direct killing intent toward the one he served. Therefore, he would seek punishment. Our boy assured him that it wasn't necessary, but if Leonard insisted on reporting to his father, he should also mention that Kyle didn't wish for him to be punished. True to his word, Leonhardt reported everything to Kyle's father, who was surprised by the request. Rempton asked if it was true that Kyle had requested his subordinate not be punished. Leonhardt confirmed this, stating that Kyle's words were sincere. Rempton clarified that it wasn't a matter of mistrusting Leonhardt, but rather that it was hard to believe. Leonhardt acknowledged this, admitting that even he had difficulty accepting it. He reported that when Kyle had calmly faced his killing intent, he had doubted what he was seeing. Rempton pondered, trying to understand how Kyle had resisted the killing intent of a knight as skilled as Leonhardt. He then asked what Kyle did afterward in the garden. After a moment of thought, Leonhardt recalled the cold wind and the sound of moving water as Kyle sat in the garden, focused. He responded to Rimpton that Kal had meditated.